I'm the author of the new book, Exploring First and Second Language, or L1-L2 Relationships, the Impact of Individual Differences. The book traces the development of my research group's investigations over 30 years in several areas related to the connections between students' native or first language skills and their second language learning. The influence of individual differences in first language skills on individual differences in second language development is an important but long neglected area of investigation. My late colleague, Leonard Ganschow, and I are special educators with expertise in reading disabilities, and learning problems. In 1990, we proposed that first and second language learning have a common underlying foundation of language learning abilities. And we speculated that most problems with second language learning will be first and foremost language learning problems. We embarked upon a series of studies investigating individual differences in language skills, including longitudinal studies of 2, 3, and 10 years, in which we investigated the relationships among first language skills, second language aptitude, and second language achievement, as well as second language reading and second language anxiety. The book is comprised of 7 parts, 5 of which include 3 of our most highly cited papers on first and second language relationships. Each paper begins with an introduction that traces our ideas from rationale to hypothesis and research questions to the findings from the studies. Part 1 presents 3 early papers that trace the history and development of our linguistic coding differences hypothesis. These 3 papers explain the basis for the hypothesis and describe its foundational premises, the gist of which is that individual differences in second language aptitude and second language achievement have their genesis in students' native language or first language achievement. Part 2 presents 3 of our early studies that provided empirical support for the connections between individual differences in first language achievement and second language achievement, and also for cross-linguistic transfer of skills from first language to second language. One of the chapters presents our studies on first language print exposure or reading volume, which found that students with stronger first language skills who read more had stronger second language aptitude and second language achievement than those with weaker first language skills and less reading volume. 3 presents 3 of our longitudinal studies that provide empirical support for the connections between first and second language achievement. This part focuses on individual differences in first language development and how those differences are related specifically to second language aptitude as measured by, for example, the Modern Language Aptitude Test. Part 3 is important because it describes the substantial differences in early first language attainment in elementary school and how those individual differences are related to second language aptitude and second language achievement many years later in high school. Part 4 presents my research on a different topic, second language anxiety, which has long been thought to affect second language achievement. In 1991, Ganschow and I wrote our most highly cited paper in which we proposed that anxiety for language learning is related to individual differences in learners' levels of first language achievement and second language aptitude. Students with lower levels of language ability will report higher anxiety and vice versa. Since then, we've conducted numerous studies which have shown that language skills and language aptitude are confounding or third variables in any relationship between anxiety and second language achievement. In addition, our most recent studies have shown that individual differences in language skills precede individual differences in language anxiety. My recent research on second language reading and literacy. Since the 1980s, voluminous evidence in the field of reading science has shown that reading is a language-based skill. In this part, I introduce the reader to the simple view of reading model, the most well-established model that explains the skills, word decoding, and oral language comprehension that are necessary for learning to read an alphabetic orthography, and apply it to learning to read a second language. The studies in Part 5 show that the model also explains second language reading ability and can also identify the types of good and poor readers that second language teachers will encounter in their classrooms. 6 is an English. which contends that individual differences in first language ability have been largely overlooked by second language researchers. This essay reviews the extensive literature from language researchers on individual differences in first language ability, which have found differences in early first language ability and all components of language development. The individual differences are both large and stable over time. The individual differences predict later outcomes like reading, for example, and individual differences can be measured before the age of 5 with standardized tests. The essay also provides a tutorial on how to measure individual differences in first language ability and explains the long-term connections among individual differences in early first language ability and later second language aptitude and second language achievement. The essay also introduces the reader to the concepts of inter-individual differences, differences among people, and intra-individual differences, differences within a single person, and how those differences manifest themselves in second language learning. Part seven is the epilogue and future directions. It's an essay that concludes with a summary of the main concepts in the book, presents my theoretical model of second language aptitude, which includes domain-specific and domain-general skills, and summarizes recommendations for researching the skills that are necessary for second language acquisition. The book also has 3 appendices that list and describe several testing measures for the assessment of oral and written English skills, the assessment of second language aptitude, the assessment of second language achievement, and the assessment of oral and written Spanish skills. I hope that you find the book to be a valuable addition to your library. Thank you.